Her last message was only 6 words long. He hurt me. Please believe me. Alara Vane stared at the cracked screen in the darkness, her thumb hovering above the number she had sworn she would never use. Beyond the locked dressing room, music drifted up from the silver pine great hall, soft strings and polished laughter carrying through the walls as if the night were ordinary, as if their beloved Luna were not hidden 20 feet above them, struggling to steady each breath. The phone felt impossibly heavy in her hand. 5 years ago, Alpha King Kale Draven had placed that number inside a small silver card and told her to keep it somewhere safe. They had spoken for less than an hour at the Silver Moon Conference, yet he had listened to her thoughts on ancient pack law as though her voice mattered. Before leaving, he had said something she had not understood at the time. If the day ever comes when someone teaches you to doubt your own truth, send me 1 sentence. I will believe you. Alara had nearly thrown the card away after marrying Alpha Ronan Vale. Ronan had called it inappropriate for a Luna to keep another man's private number. She had agreed. She agreed with almost everything now. It was easier than watching the warmth disappear from his eyes. Easier than being told she remembered conversations incorrectly. Easier than apologizing for words she had never said. But Mira, the pack healer, had hidden the card inside an old prayer book. 2 years later, she had helped Alara buy the small phone now glowing between her hands. Just in case, Mira had whispered. Alara had hated those words. Just in case meant admitting there was something to fear. Tonight, there was no room left for denial. Her side ached whenever she moved, and the room seemed to tilt beneath her. Ronan had left her alone, with a warning to compose herself before he returned. Downstairs, his guests were probably praising his leadership. They always did. Silverpine saw a disciplined alpha, a generous host, a devoted mate. Alara saw the man who had slowly erased every door leading out of her life. Her friends had stopped writing. Her family believed she was too busy to visit. The servants who once spoke freely around her now lowered their eyes. Even her own memories had begun to feel like witnesses she could no longer trust. A sound echoed in the hallway. One measured footstep, then another. Ronan was coming back. Alara's heartbeat slammed against her ribs. She typed the message again, forcing each word onto the screen. He hurt me. Please believe me. For 1 terrible second, she could not press send. If Kyle ignored her, the last small piece of hope inside her would die. If he answered, nothing in Silverpine would ever be the same. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Alara closed her eyes and pressed the button. The message disappeared into the dark. 1 second passed, then 2. The lock shifted. Her screen lit up. Kyle's reply contained 7 words. I believe you. Stay alive. I am coming. Alara read it once, then again, and something inside her changed. Not courage, not yet, but the memory of courage. The handle began to turn. She slipped the phone beneath the loose floorboard, drew 1 careful breath, and lifted her face toward the opening door. Ronan entered with the calm expression he wore whenever servants were nearby. His dark coat was perfectly buttoned, his silver cufflinks untouched, and not a single strand of hair had fallen out of place. He looked like the Alpha Silverpine trusted with its borders, its winter stores, and the safety of every family beneath his rule. Alara knew better than to mistake appearance for truth. His gaze moved across the dressing room, pausing on the open cabinet, the disturbed hem of the rug, and finally, her face. You took longer than I expected, he said. His voice was gentle. That was always worse. Alara lowered her eyes before he could order her to. I felt dizzy. Ronan crossed the room without hurry and placed a glass of water on the table beside her. Then you should have listened when I told you to rest. He spoke as though the evening had been shaped by her carelessness, as though he had not locked the door behind him. Alara kept her breathing shallow and even. Beneath the loose floorboard, the hidden phone seemed brighter than a lantern, though no light escaped. Kale was coming. The thought was dangerous. Hope changed the rhythm of the heart, and Ronan noticed everything. "Look at me," he said. She obeyed. His amber eyes searched hers with patient suspicion. 3 years ago, she had believed that attention meant devotion. Back then, Ronan remembered how she took her tea, which books made her laugh, and how cold weather made her fingers ache. He had offered to handle her correspondence so she could rest. He had suggested that certain friends were jealous of her new position. He had explained that visits to her family created security risks. Each kindness had closed another door, so softly that Alara had not heard the locks turning. By the time she realized she was alone, everyone outside Silverpine believed she had chosen a distance. "The guests are asking for you," Ronan said. Alpha Lucian was especially concerned. The name was a test. Alara gave him nothing. "I am sorry I left the table. You embarrassed me." His tone remained smooth, almost affectionate. "You spoke as though my judgment required correction. I only remembered the treaty. That is not your role." He reached toward her, and Alara fought the instinct to pull away. His fingers adjusted the silver clasp at her throat, covering the faint mark his temper had left there. "Your role is to stand beside me, to support me, to show Silverpine that its Alpha and Luna are united." In the mirror, they looked exactly as the pack expected. Ronan, tall and composed. Alara pale but elegant beneath the moonstone lamps. No one would see the locked door. No one would hear the warnings hidden inside his quiet words. That was how the cage worked. It did not need iron bars. It only needed a beautiful house, a respected name, and enough people willing to believe the smile presented to them. Ronan stepped back and studied her reflection. "Tomorrow morning, you will stand with me before the pack. You will explain that you became ill during dinner and fell while returning to our rooms." Alara felt the old answer rise automatically. "Yes, Ronan. Of course, Ronan. I am sorry, Ronan." Then she remembered 7 words glowing in the darkness. "I believe you. Stay alive. I am coming. I understand," she said instead. Ronan watched her for 1 second too long. Somewhere beyond the windows, thunder rolled over the mountains. Far below, hidden by rain and pine, headlights appeared on the northern road. Hours earlier, the great hall had glowed with amber firelight, polished silver, and the false warmth of perfect hospitality. Alpha Lucian Gray sat across from Ronan at the long cedar table, while senior wolves from both packs listened to their discussion about the river that divided Silverpine from Grey Hollow. Winter had come early that year. Ice already covered the northern banks, and both territories feared the same thing: there would not be enough water when the deep freeze reached the valley. Ronan favored a simple solution. Silverpine would control the river because Silverpine had the stronger army. He presented the decision with a relaxed smile, as though strength alone had always been the same as justice. Alara sat beside him with her hands folded in her lap. For most of the evening, she had said nothing. Silence had become an instinct, as natural as breathing. Then Lucian mentioned the Treaty of 3 Rivers, an agreement written more than a century before either pack had claimed the valley. Alara remembered the text immediately. She had studied it as a girl, back when books still felt like doors instead of reminders of the life she had lost. The treaty did not award water to the strongest territory during a winter shortage. It divided access according to the number of children, elders, and sick pack members in each region. Ronan continued speaking, unaware that his plan violated the oldest law governing their borders. Alara felt the words rise inside her. She tried to bury them, Then she pictured families in Grey Hollow carrying empty buckets through the snow. "There may be another provision," she said softly. Every voice at the table stopped. Ronan turned his head toward her. His smile remained in place, but the warmth disappeared from his eyes. Alara forced herself to continue. She explained the winter clause, the population count, and the shared reservoir required by the treaty. Lucian listened without interruption. When she finished, he asked his legal advisor to confirm it. The man searched the copied documents and slowly nodded. Alara was right. The solution would protect both packs without surrendering either territory. Relief moved through the room. Lucian lifted his glass. "Silverpine is fortunate," he said. "Its Luna remembers the laws that keep power from becoming cruelty." Several guests raised their glasses with him. Ronan did the same. Only Alara saw the fine crack form along the stem beneath his fingers. The rest of dinner passed beneath a veil of courtesy. Ronan laughed at the proper moments. He thanked Lucian for recognizing Alara. He rested one hand near hers as if they were still the devoted pair Silverpine believed them to be. Alara could feel the storm waiting beneath his calm. When the final guest departed, Ronan offered his arm and guided her upstairs. No one noticed that Alara had gone pale. No one questioned why the private door closed behind them. Standing in the dressing room, with his order for the morning still hanging in the air, she understood what had frightened him most. It was not that she had challenged him, it was that, for one brief moment, everyone had listened to her. Ronan moved toward the door, then paused. "Tomorrow," he said without turning, "you will correct what happened tonight." Alara looked at their reflection in the mirror. His posture was steady, hers was not, but somewhere beyond the mountains, the headlights on a northern road were drawing closer. "Tomorrow," she answered quietly, "the truth will be heard." Ronan turned back, and for the first time, uncertainty entered his eyes. Ronan studied her as though the woman before him had become unfamiliar. Alara kept her face still, though every instinct warned her to look away. For 3 years, he had depended on the certainty that fear would speak before she did. Now he was searching for the place where that certainty had gone. "What did you say?" he asked. Alara lowered her gaze just enough to calm him. "I said the pack deserves the truth about the treaty." It was close enough to innocence that he accepted it, but not without suspicion. Ronan moved toward her, adjusted the clasp at her throat once more, then stepped away. "Rest while you can. At sunrise, you will stand beside me." He left and locked the door from the outside. Alara waited until his footsteps disappeared down the hall. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. She crossed the room slowly, lifted the loose floorboard, and retrieved the phone. Kael had sent another message. "Can you provide proof?" Alara stared at the words. Months earlier, she would have answered no. She had spent too long convincing herself that survival required silence, but silence had never protected her. It had only protected Ronan. She opened a hidden folder and began sending everything she had collected in secret photographs of altered medical records, dates when servants had vanished without explanation, copies of complaints that had never reached the council, and a recording of Ronan ordering the pack healer to change an injury report. Last, she sent the access code to the archive beneath his private study. Her hands trembled, but she did not stop. Each file felt like a door unlocking. A narrow panel behind the wardrobe shifted open. Mira Ash slipped through the service passage, carrying a small medical bag and a dark wool cloak. Her gray eyes moved over Alara with immediate concern. "We have to leave, now," she whispered. "There is an old tunnel beneath the east stairs. It opens near the river, less than half a mile from the border." Alara looked toward the rain-streaked window. Escape was close enough to imagine. She could disappear before sunrise, take another name, and let Silverpine believe whatever story Ronan chose to tell. For one heartbeat, the thought felt like freedom. Then she remembered the young kitchen maid who had stopped speaking after being reassigned to the Alpha Wing. She remembered the frightened Omega who had arrived at the infirmary with a story no one believed. She remembered how often Mira had lowered her voice before saying Ronan's name. "If I run," Alara said, "he will call me unstable. He will say I abandoned the pack. And everyone who is still afraid will learn that telling the truth only makes you vanish." Mira's expression tightened. "He may not let you speak tomorrow. Then we make certain he cannot stop me." Alara handed her the phone. "Send copies to every senior healer in Silverpine. Use the emergency network. Schedule them for sunrise." Mira stared at her. "Once this begins, there is no taking it back." Alara looked at her reflection in the mirror. The woman there was pale, exhausted, and afraid. But she was no longer invisible. "That is why it has to begin outside." Thunder rolled across the valley. Far below the pack house, the first royal vehicle reached Silverpine's northern gate. By sunrise, the storm had passed, leaving Silverpine beneath a sky the color of cold steel. The central courtyard filled slowly as pack members answered the summons, their boots dark with rain and their voices low with unease. Ronan stood on the raised stone platform in a black ceremonial coat, composed and immaculate, as though the night had left no mark on him. Alara stood at his side. Mira had wrapped her ribs beneath the silver gown and covered the bruising at her throat with a high collar, but nothing could hide the effort behind each careful breath. Ronan placed one hand at her waist to the crowd. The gesture looked protective. Alara felt the warning in his fingers. "Silverpine has been disturbed by malicious rumors," he announced. His voice carried easily across the courtyard. "Someone has attempted to undermine your alpha, weaken our alliances, and shame the bond that protects this pack." Murmurs moved through the gathered wolves. Ronan turned toward Alara with a patient smile. "My Luna will explain what truly happened last night." The courtyard became silent. Alara saw hundreds of familiar faces, yet she had never felt more alone. Ronan had already given her the words. She had become dizzy. She had fallen. Alpha Lucian's visit had exhausted her. It was a simple story, polished enough to survive any question. All she had to do was repeat it. "Tell them," Ronan said softly. Her body remembered obedience before her mind could resist. Apologize. Protect him. Survive. Then Alara noticed a young Omega near the back of the crowd. The girl worked in the kitchens and rarely raised her eyes. A pale mark circled one wrist beneath her sleeve. Alara had seen marks like that before. She had looked away because looking meant knowing, and knowing required courage she had not believed she possessed. Silence had never belonged only to her. Every lie she repeated became another locked door for someone else. Ronan's hand tightened. "Alara." She lifted her head. "I did not fall." The words were quiet, but the courtyard carried them farther than a shout. Ronan's smile remained frozen. "You are confused." "I am not confused." Her voice strengthened. "I was harmed because I spoke without permission." A sharp breath passed through the crowd. Some wolves stared at Ronan. Others looked toward the ground. He gave a soft, regretful laugh. "My mate has been ill. She does not understand what she is saying." "I understand perfectly." Alara stepped away from his hand. Pain flashed through her side, but she remained standing. "For 3 years, I was told that my memories were wrong, my friends were disloyal, and my voice brought danger to this pack. None of that was true." Ronan's composure cracked. "Take her inside." 2 guards moved forward, then stopped when Mira left the crowd and climbed the first step of the platform. "She is telling the truth," the healer said. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. Another woman stepped forward, then an older servant, then the young Omega from the kitchens. Ronan looked across the courtyard as the silence he had built began turning against him. "This is treason," he said. "No," Alara answered. "This is testimony." Every healer's communication device sounded at once. The files had been delivered. Ronan turned toward her, and the mask finally fell from his face. Before he could issue another command, a deep horn echoed from the northern gate. Every wolf in the courtyard went still. Beyond the stone walls, engines approached in perfect formation. Then the gates opened, and the royal standard of Alpha King Kale Draven appeared through the morning mist. The royal convoy entered Silverpine without haste, 6 black vehicles moving through the open gate beneath banners marked with a silver crown and a white wolf. No soldiers raised weapons. They did not need to. The courtyard felt the change before anyone saw the king. Power moved through the air like pressure before a storm, ancient and controlled, strong enough to still every voice without forcing a single person to kneel. Kale Draven stepped from the lead vehicle, wearing a dark coat fastened at the throat with the royal crest. Rain clung to his shoulders. His silver-gray eyes swept across the platform, passed over Ronan, and stopped on Alara. For one suspended moment, the courtyard disappeared. Alara remembered the conference hall from 5 years earlier, the quiet man who had listened while others interrupted, the silver card placed carefully in her hand. He looked harder now, shaped by years of command, but his first question held no authority. "Are you safe enough to answer me?" Ronan moved between them. "You have entered sovereign territory without invitation." Kale did not look away from Alara. "Did you request royal sanctuary?" The question reached her like a hand extended across deep water. Ronan turned sharply. "She is unwell. Any message she sent was made under confusion." Kale waited. He did not command her to speak. He did not answer for her. Alara felt every eye in Silverpine resting on her. But for the first time, their attention did not feel like a cage. "Yes," she said. Her voice was quiet, yet steady. "I called for sanctuary. I asked him to come." Only then did Kale face Ronan. "Under the Northern Sanctuary Accord, her request suspends your authority over her until an independent hearing is complete." Ronan laughed once, though no humor reached his face. "She is my Luna, my mate. You cannot enter my home and take what belongs to me." Something cold entered Kale's expression, but his voice remained level. "A mate bond is not ownership. It is a vow to protect the person who trusts you. The moment you use that vow to silence her, you abandoned every privilege attached to it." A murmur moved through the pack. Ronan raised his chin. "You have only her word." Mira stepped forward. "He has mine as well." The older servant joined her. Then the kitchen Omega. Across the courtyard, communication devices continued to sound as healers opened the files Alara had sent. Kale lifted one hand. Royal investigators moved toward the pack house, carrying a sealed warrant bearing the council mark. "The archive beneath your study will be opened," Kale said, for the first time. True fear crossed Ronan's face. He looked at Alara, and she understood that he knew exactly what waited below. Altered records, missing complaints, names erased from official reports. His control had always depended on darkness. Now the doors were opening. Ronan stepped closer to her. Kale moved at once, placing himself between them. But he kept several feet of distance from Alara. Even protection, she realized, could leave room to breathe. "You planned this," Ronan said. Alara met his stare. "No, I survived long enough to tell the truth." Behind them, the investigators reached the entrance to the pack house. One entered the access code. A heavy lock released beneath the stone floor. Ronan heard it, and the last trace of calm vanished from his eyes. The first investigator returned, carrying a narrow metal case sealed with the silver pine crest. Behind him, two more emerged with ledgers, medical files, and a bundle of unsigned complaints tied with black cord. No one in the courtyard spoke. Ronan watched the evidence appear piece by piece, and the confidence that had ruled Silverpine for years began to collapse in plain sight. "Those records are false," he said. "Planted." Cale did not answer. He handed the first ledger to Mira. Her fingers shook as she opened it, then stopped on a page marked with her own signature. "This was altered," she said. "I never approved this report." Another healer stepped forward and found the same, then another. Names that had disappeared from official records returned to the morning air, spoken aloud by people who had once been too afraid to ask where they had gone. Ronan looked toward his guards. "Arrest them." No one moved. "That is an order." Still, no one obeyed. His authority had always sounded absolute because silence had answered it. Now silence belonged to the pack, and it no longer served him. Ronan turned to Alara. Something unseen tightened across her chest. The old mate bond stirred, cold and commanding, pressing a single order into her mind. "Kneel." Her knees weakened, breath caught in her throat. For years, the bond had carried his will like a locked door inside her body. Ronan saw the struggle and smiled. "Come back to my side," he said. "Tell them you lied." Alara placed one hand over the mark hidden beneath her collar. Beneath her palm, she felt what she had sensed the night before. Not a sacred thread, but a vow twisted by fear. Dark fractures ran through it, each one formed by a command she had obeyed against her will. Kyle took one step toward her, then stopped. He could have forced Ronan back with royal power. Instead, he waited for Alara to choose. She looked at Mira, at the kitchen Omega, at every face that had finally stepped out of silence. Then she looked at Ronan. "A bond without consent is not sacred," she said. The pressure increased. Her legs trembled, but she remained standing. "You did not protect what the moon entrusted to you. You used it as a chain." Silver light spread beneath her skin. The mark at her shoulder warmed, then cracked like ice beneath sunlight. Ronan's expression changed from anger to disbelief. "You cannot reject me. I already have." The mate command broke. Alara drew her first full breath in years. Ronan moved toward her, but Kyle stepped between them. Royal guards closed the distance without raising their weapons. Ronan turned toward Mira, desperate to silence the witness nearest to him, but the pack formed a wall around her. No one stood alone now. Kyle's voice carried across the courtyard. "Ronan Vale, your authority is suspended. You will answer before the Northern Council." For a moment, Ronan seemed ready to resist. Then he looked at the evidence, the guards who would not obey, and the Luna who no longer feared his voice. The fight left his face before it ever reached his hands. Royal officers placed silver restraints around his wrists and led him from the platform. As he passed Alara, he whispered, "Without me, you are nothing." Alara met his eyes. "Then watch what I become." The courtyard gates closed behind him. The silver light at her shoulder faded, but in its place, something warmer answered from across the space between her and Kyle. Alara woke near dusk in a quiet room overlooking the eastern ridge. The curtains were open, and pale gold light rested across the floorboards. For one disoriented moment, she expected to hear Ronan's key at the door. Instead, there was only the soft crackle of a fire and the distant sound of rainwater dripping from the roof. She turned her head and found Kyle standing near the window, several feet from the bed. He noticed her movement immediately, but he did not come closer. "You are safe," he said. His voice was low, careful. "Mira says you need rest." Alara pushed herself upright, then stopped when the room shifted. Kael moved instinctively, but caught himself before reaching for her. "May I help?" The question unsettled her more than a command would have. No one had asked permission in a very long time. After a moment, she nodded. Kael placed an extra pillow behind her and stepped away again. The distance he gave her felt like its own kind of kindness. On the table beside the bed lay 2 documents and a worn blue book. Alara recognized the title immediately. The Laws of the 3 Rivers. "You remembered," she said. Kael looked at the book. "You argued with 3 council scholars about it 5 years ago." "They were wrong. You were very clear about that." A faint warmth entered his expression. And for the first time since sunrise, Alara almost smiled. Then her gaze moved to the papers. Kael's face grew serious. "The first grants you royal protection under any name you choose. You may leave Silver Pine tonight and go anywhere in the Northern Territories. No council, alpha, or family member will be told where you are unless you permit it." Alara touched the edge of the document. "And the second, a formal summons. The Northern Council will hear your testimony and Mira's. The records from Rona's archive suggest Silver Pine was not the only territory where complaints were buried." The weight of that truth settled over her. "You knew something was wrong." Kael was silent for a moment. "I suspected. At the conference, Ronan answered every question meant for you. He corrected your memories before you finished speaking. I sent inspectors later, but every report came back clean. I had no legal cause to cross his border." "So you gave me the number." "I could not choose for you," he said. "I could only leave a door open." Alara studied him. "Did you know I was your mate?" The fire shifted softly behind him. "No. I felt something I could not name, but you had made a bond, and I would not use instinct as an excuse to interfere with your life." The warm light beneath her skin answered him again, quiet and steady. "If I had not been your mate, would you still have come?" Kael did not hesitate. "Yes." The word entered the room without ceremony, yet it reached deeper than any vow. Alara looked down at the royal protection order. "I do not know what I am ready for." "Then no one will ask you to decide today, not even you, especially not me." He moved toward the door. Alara felt the old fear of being left alone rise, then recognized it for what it was, an echo, not a command. "Kael," he stopped. "I want to speak before the council." She drew a slow breath. "But I do not want you to stand in front of me." Kael turned back. "Where would you have me stand?" Alara met his eyes. "Beside me." 3 weeks later. Alara entered the hall of the Northern Council beneath a ceiling painted with moons, rivers, and the names of long-dead kings. Every alpha in the Northern Territories had gathered to hear her testimony. Some watched with sympathy. Others watched with discomfort, as though her truth threatened traditions they had never questioned. Kael stood beside her, exactly where she had asked him to stand, not ahead of her, not behind her, beside her. Mira and the women of Silver Pine waited only a few steps away. Alara placed both hands on the council table and told them everything. She spoke of complaints hidden in locked archives, healers pressured into silence, and bonds used as excuses for control. She did not ask for pity. She asked for change. "I was not the first woman who needed sanctuary," she said. "I was only the first one you were forced to hear." The hall fell silent. Then Alara presented 3 reforms, a direct sanctuary line available to every pack member, independent medical records protected from Alpha authority, and a law suspending any mate bond used to command through fear. Several council members resisted. One elderly alpha argued that private bonds should remain beyond royal interference. Alara met his gaze. Privacy protects love. Secrecy protects cruelty. They are not the same. By sunset, the council approved an investigation across every northern territory and passed the first Sanctuary Protection Act. Silverpine would be governed by an elected council until its people chose new leadership. Alara accepted a position as royal advocate for Sanctuary, not because Kale offered her a crown, but because she had discovered what her voice could build. That evening, she found him alone on the eastern balcony. He held a small silver badge, the one she had lost at the conference 5 years earlier. "You kept it?" she said. "I remembered the woman who challenged an entire room and never raised her voice." Kale placed the badge in her palm. "Fate may have recognized you first. I would still rather earn the right to know you." Alara felt the warm, golden bond between them. Patient and open. "Then ask me," she whispered. Kale searched her face. "Alara Vane, free of every command and owing me nothing. Do you choose me as your mate?" She placed her hand over his heart. "Not because the moon chose you, because I do." The bond opened like sunrise, gentle rather than demanding. Kale touched his forehead to hers. And beneath the first stars of evening, the Alpha King received his true mate only after she had reclaimed herself. Some people believe strength is proven by control, fear, or the power to make others obey. I believe this story shows the opposite. Real strength listens. It leaves room for choice. It protects without turning love into a cage. Alara was not saved by a crown alone. Her life changed when she trusted her own truth and found the courage to speak it. Kale became worthy of her not because he was the strongest wolf, but because he never asked her to become smaller beside him. What do you believe mattered most the moment Alara sent the message, the moment she faced the council, or the moment she freely chose Kale? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories about courage, justice, and love that honors freedom speak to you, subscribe and join us for the next journey.